We talk a lot, but we don't often get a chance to share a lot. But thank you for sharing, Anya. And without jumping too far ahead, and I'm cognizant of that. And one, I don't want to be introducing concepts that we haven't already talked about in the last two sessions, but it's all online as well, and it's all available on our CIT website. And there's podcasts we can listen to. There's information, there's reading. But one of the things that Anya was touching on there that Mary Catherine will be aware of is this moving out of our resilience zone, and when we are feeling triggered in some way, or even if we're attempting to be compassionate as we can for another, which is in the definition in CIT, is to alleviate, or to the motivation or wish to alleviate the suffering of others. Sometimes we go from a sense of having empathy, this cognitive and affective empathy we talk a lot about, into a state of empathic distress. And it's when we are attempting to be compassionate, but in fact we feel overwhelmed in some way, shape, or form. And it's not so much real empathy, but it's empathic distress. And I think we have to be very acutely aware that this can happen in these times, that we are attempting to be compassionate to ourselves and to others, but sometimes that stress can take over. And particularly the example that we're giving there, Anya, a fellow participant in one of our courses, and a colleague and friend I've known for some years. So knowing that we want to be compassionate, we want to take this sense of agency to assist, but it's not always so easy. And there's lots of challenges, but being able to make some difference, even if it's a micro difference, is very important, to stay within that resilience zone, but also not to move from empathic concern, which we all hope to be able to practice and have this empathic concern, into empathic distress. And that can be for a loved one close by, it could be for somebody very far away in the world. But for me, having the concepts, I would have been practicing quite a lot of this before CIT, but having the concepts of empathic distress, empathic concern, resilience zones, nervous system, and then ways that we can work it back is quite important. And today what we hope to do is maybe focus a little more on the practice. And although we only have 4 fantastic participants here, and that's including myself in the fantastic participant label, we also have this recording, so people might be able to watch back and gain something from the practices we can go through today. So thank you. Mary Catherine, please. Yeah.
I realized that as Anya was speaking, that while I focused on the more personal relationships and my connections, and that's what kind of helped calm me down, I think for years I've had to deal with knowing that my son was in a risky business in terms of us as a fireman, and he's a climber, so mountain climber. So I always would say, be safe, have a good time, but be careful. And then I just have to let go and know that something could happen. Like my stepbrother died climbing. So my stepmother and I had that in common, that we knew our sons could die. I think for me right now, what jerks me out of calmness and pulls on these skills, or draws on those skills, is the systems issues, the values that I'm seeing embodied in my own country, in the United States, which the values that are not being embodied, in the values I have that I wish my country had, but the negative ones that instead are propelling these horrible systemic, I don't know even what to find the right words. So that's where I have the more challenge in terms of my balance right this minute, is when I can do what I can do, I do. When I have to stand back and just hold a space and try to be calm, I do. But it's the realizing that my own countries, the people in leadership, really don't even want a government to serve the people. And that is, and are doing whatever they can to dismantle it, and then have this horrible response to people. And the good part is it highlights where they really are, what their paradigm is, what their values and principles are, and that they have nothing to do with people. It's about greed and power. And I mean, anyway, so I just like to add that is probably where my challenge is more than anything, even though I still have personal concerns about loved ones.
No, it's really, it is very true and very interesting, and it can spark us or trigger us in so many different ways. And thank you for sharing also, Mary Catherine, because when you were sharing about being the mother of, and with this concern and compassion for your son, I'm aware that I'm the son in many respects, and I'm probably more vividly aware now that for the past 15 years or so, a little longer, I've been working in conflict zones in particularly dangerous situations, and so there was that compassion and fear and concern from my parents, and now that's gone 360, where I feel quite stable, and we're in Madrid, so it's not as stable as everybody would like it to be, for sure. But I'm more concerned about my parents, who are a little more elderly and have some conditions back home. So we didn't think it would go as quickly at 360 circle, but it has done. And what brings me grounding and clarity and focus here is that our 2-year-old daughter. So this week, if I've ever been triggered or out, I just focus and play some games and have some fun. And she's just learned how to take her nappy off and wee for the first time in her potty. So if it puts everything in perspective. Life goes on. The biological part of our life goes on as well, and it brings us excitement as well. So there's all the balances of emotions, and just learning how to regulate them, I suppose, is what this resilience class in this session is about. So why not at this point, if we can, and it's a very short practice, but feel free to either mute yourself, or if you want to turn your video off, we'll introduce or reintroduce grounding, so we can just build on the grounding and maybe have a few more components today to learn and to practice. And if all goes well, we might have another 1 or 2 practices. But the grounding practice is probably the shortest of the practices that we have in the CIT. But I'm just going to invite you to find a position that suits you best. If your feet are firmly on the ground, or if you're sitting on a chair, or many people like to ground, standing up, lying down, whatever works for them. But try to focus your attention on a part of the body that's in contact with another part or another object, that in a way that makes you feel supported, secure, safe. And for me, that's the chair, but it might be something else for you. And shift your position, as we said, if you feel that it will be more comfortable in another position and more supported. Okay, this very process is quite individual to everybody else, and it can be just in the mind, but this is also bringing to mind, this is a physical sensation that we can have as well. So bring attention, or bring your attention to any sensations of your body right now. So track any pleasant or neutral sensations that you may be encountering right now. And if you don't notice any, maybe try shifting your position, see what you can find in your body. You might be experiencing some sensations that are unpleasant or even less pleasant, but let's focus on the neutral or pleasant sensations in our body. Maybe we'll just take a minute to, in our own time and with our own breath, just focus on the grounding, the sense of being secure, being supported, and being safe. in the next few moments or seconds, we'll try to bring our attention back to the group, but to be aware that by practicing grounding, it's a skill that we can do wherever we are at any time of the day. And by practicing grounding, we can also find any posture that gives us a sense of calm and groundedness. And I really hope that we're able to use some of these practices like grounding, tracking, and today we'll be also talking about resourcing, which I believe we introduced last week, but maybe we'll get a chance to share some resourcing from ourselves.
We introduced resourcing, we didn't introduce grounding, I think.
True, actually, yes, of course. So sometimes we do it the other way around, but it's grounding rather than resourcing. And sorry, Anya, I'm going to hand it over to you, maybe to debrief us on that. I got myself into a nice space, feeling supported and feeling grounded there, but it's or we can start to share some of the slides. But I would like to hear from any of the people who usually there's a lot more people here, but if you how that experience of grounding was for you, and as we interpret grounding in CIT, it is any position that makes us feel supported, or can be sometimes walking, sometimes in transport or in transit somewhere, but it's that sense of support and calm and togetherness, groundedness, safety, security, and it's what we're really imploring is that we focus on the pleasant and neutral sensations in our body, because so often we can just jump to the aches or pains, but it doesn't really have the same effect on our nervous system. But how was that for you? Any of you want to comment or share?
Well, it actually shifted me into another real emotional place. I think I moved without just spontaneously into probably the resourcing. And, I've done shamanic work for 25, 30 years or whatever. And was like all these beings were around me, and I just felt supported. I mean, I felt supported in the chair, and I just felt supported all the way around. So then when you were asking us about parts of our body, all I could feel was tears coming in my eyes. And then so that whole part, I thought, well, what am I seeing? And then I was seeing all these. So anyway, that's what happened for me, is I felt grounded. The grounding was helpful, and it led me immediately to some sense of a lot of the allies who were around for me. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
For me, because I'm more used to the Asian Asian way of meditation, so I would usually put my legs like this, and I'm actually doing it now on top of the chair. So
good idea.
That posture always makes me calmer, and we build this sense of a lump of energy around the core part of your body. So it really brings that weight that kind of connects me to the ground. So it helps me to bring down any anxieties that I had floating around on upper part of my body, to bring it down to the core, and it was very helpful. And last night I had some strange dreams, so that was kind of at the back of my mind all morning. So this exercise really brought all of that down and made me calmer.
Thank you so much for sharing, and welcome, Frank. No problem at all. Our schedules are all over the place right now, so you're welcome to join us now. And we have some extra practices to share. I hope you can benefit from. But Juan, thank you so much for sharing. And I think you mentioned other things that are coming into our mind, even though we're trying to ground and practice and be focused. Sometimes the mind can just wander, and that's one of the practices that we look at today, as well as resting the mind in its natural place, and particularly dreams. It's a whole other conversation we can get into another time, but the dreams are very, very weird and wonderful right now. But thank you Thank you for sharing. And really, that was just one minute or a few moments, but you can imagine it really only takes a couple of moments to be able to ground ourselves in particularly in positions or situations when we need it most. It's often when we don't do it. So it's practice, practice, practice. And I'm not sure, Anya, if you wanted to comment on how that was for you, but for me, even though I was reading or expressing what I wanted to express, and it only took a few moments, I was feeling a sense of groundedness and connected. And for me, that's in my shoulders and my arms. For some reason, I was feeling lighter, and I don't know what that's about, but that's where I was getting the sensations of my body. And we usually do it the other way around, but because we did resourcing last week, it might be nice either if we could do a resourcing practice and maybe we can have a chance to share one or two resources that people might be able to use for themselves or people are using, because we can never have it's an unlimited stack or stock of resources that we can build up. And for me, the resourcing has probably been the strongest part of my past week. Either other people sharing their resources with me or other people practicing the resources. In the other resilience training, I was a participant and I really found that very beneficial.
I think it's a good idea, Shane. Why don't we do resourcing now? And since we are an extended group now, we have one common practice, and then we do the slide of the dog, and we're talking about focus attention a bit more abstractly. What do you think?
Perfect. So do I hand it over to you, Anya, or are you handing it to me? We can decide.
I can do the.
Great.
Then
selfishly, I say great.
Then you get a treat, and you can all close your eyes. So, we introduced resourcing last week, but just quickly, as a review, in this practice, you will be asked to bring to mind a resource. As a reminder, a resource is something you can bring to mind that makes you feel calmer, better, happier, or safer, or that you associate with those things. It can be internal, external, or imagined. An internal resource is something about yourself, such as quality you have, a part of your body you're proud of. This could be something like a good sense of humor or strong arms. An external resource is a person, place, thing, or memory of an experience. Finally, an imagined resource could be a favorite character or scene from a film, book, or theater production, or as an imagined experience you make up in your mind. And what I also believe is very important to actually try to integrate as many senses as you can. So let's begin by taking a relaxed and upright posture. You might sit in a chair, on the floor, or on a cushion. You may close your eyes or leave them open, whatever feels most comfortable for you. Now bring to mind one of your resources in as much detail as possible. The more vivid, the better. Recall the sights, sounds, smells, and physical sensations associated with your resource. As you think about this resource, track any pleasant or neutral sensations you're experiencing in your body in this present moment. Rest your attention on one of these pleasant or neutral sensations. your mind wanders, that's okay. Simply return to your resource and track the pleasant and neutral sensations. As we conclude the practice, I hope you found it helpful. Remember that you can practice it any time of the day, anywhere you are, and you don't need any guidance for that. So it helps to regulate our nervous system, to bring us back into the resilience zone. Tracking is something we can learn as well, scanning our bodies. They get those skills, both resourcing and tracking, get stronger over time. So practice is important. And we also mentioned last week that different resources can be used for different purposes. As we exchange during check-in, sometimes we feel down, and resources can be uplifting, and sometimes we feel in our hyper zone being really afraid or anxious, and then we can bring us down with resources or calm us down. It's always good to practice a lot and try different resources. And I'm going to hand over for debrief to you, Shane.
Thank you, Anya. And also thank you, Juan, for the suggestion of your seating position. I managed to do the resourcing in the cross-legged, and I found it even more beneficial to me there, but I didn't think we could do it on a chair in a Western type of situation. But yeah, so we haven't got a huge amount of time, and we would love to share some other components and build on this. So what I would suggest is that maybe next week for our Friday session, we might be able to even one-to-one do a small breakout and share some of our resources, so people get a chance to listen and also feel that sense of empathy and exchange, and that we can also benefit. This is the great thing with resourcing. When somebody is sharing their resource, our resilience zone, our nervous system can benefit from just listening to somebody else's. And I think that's one of the wonderful thing about the simplicity of these tools and resources that we're talking about within CIT and the first 4 skills. So I'm not sure how that was for you, but for me, it was really nice. I get that light feeling in many parts of my body, but I had a resource plan that I was going to do, and then when I turned off my video, I saw a photograph, and I'm not sure if other people see photographs and they turn their video off, but that became a resource for me. It's a place in my grandparents' garden that's they're not there anymore. The garden's not there anymore, but the resource is still there for me, and that's one of the beautiful things about resources as well. They don't need to be real or there anymore. They can be brought into our memory as well. So if anybody else would like to share any nuggets of wisdom, that's absolutely fine. And we may be able to share a little bit at the end. So if you want to pause that sharing, and we can open that up for discussion at the end. But I just wanted to share my screen, and also I hope you're seeing what we're seeing, but these are part of 10 skills, and we're still in series 1 for sure. But the resource that I wanted to share today with us, not necessarily a resource, but the metaphor. Are you seeing the image that I'm seeing? Are you seeing a dog with the sunlight? Yeah. The young girl. Great, thanks, Frank. So often this is a metaphor that we've adapted, and it comes from an ancient Indian metaphor of taming the wild elephant. But right now, for the purpose of not triggering or any animal abuse or whatever it can be, many people have pets and pet dogs. So we're using the dog as the analogy. Well, the dog is part of the metaphor. So it's a dog that we want to train. And this is a young lady who's attempting to train a dog. So in this metaphor, we're going to use the dog as a metaphor for the mind. And so you can imagine that the mind, if if left untamed, can run wild at many points and many times. And a young dog, particularly a puppy, full of exuberance, full of energy, can run rampant and also cause harm, cause damage, if not in some way kept under that leash or controlled. And likewise, the mind, if untamed and if without practice and some sense of control, can do harm to ourselves and harm to others as well. So this analogy and metaphor is about being able to bring some elements of mindfulness. And the second thing in this metaphor is that the ball that the young lady is holding, this ball is the object of attention, object of focused attention. And for the purpose of our CIT practices, the breath becomes similar to the ball. It becomes the object of our attention. So when we're maybe feeling the mind wandering or getting a little bit out of control, the breath can help us to focus and bring that sense of control back to ourselves. So the dog is the mind, the object of attention is the ball or the breath. The leash that the young lady is connecting from herself to the dog, the leash is mindfulness. And as the skills progress, we'll get into some more definitions of ethical mindfulness. We have a whole set of different definitions, but right now it's just that awareness and focus that we are connected to something, and that we can, with breath and with other uses of other tools, we can bring ourselves back. But the leash is the mindfulness and connection, and sometimes that's a connection to our values. In CIT, we see mindfulness very much as being aware of our values in our every moment-to-moment expressions. And so the final part of this metaphor is the young girl herself. She is the what we call the metacognitive awareness or introspection, introspective awareness. And this is the awareness of awareness. So she's the person who's calling the puppy back when he or she runs off, and again has a leash for the mindfulness, has the ball for the focused attention, and the mind itself is the dog. And so we
if you click, we get the
let's see. Thank you, Anya. Should have been doing this as I was going along. So the mind, we have our dog. To summarize, the object of attention is the ball, the tennis ball. The mindfulness is the leash, and the metacognitive awareness or introspective awareness is the young lady. And we may have some one or two questions about the metaphor, but we'll try to bring that metaphor back into practice as well next week. Hand over to build on these concepts of stability and clarity to Anya.
Thank you, Shane. Yeah, so the goal is trying to cultivate stability on the one hand and clarity on the other. And stability here means keeping the focus, resisting distractions, keeping the object of focus in mind, be it the breath or any other object of focus, depending on which sort of contemplative practice we are doing. And the clarity means staying clear-spirited, not too relaxed so that we doze away, but still relaxed enough to be able to focus. On the other hand, it is an exercise which demands a practice, and we shouldn't be hard on ourselves here. It requires a long time. It requires practice. I'm still not very close to this image. I can't get used to it. But all those muscles are representing in a vivid way, I'd say, the metacognition, because Shane alluded to meta-awareness, the thinking that we can think what we think or do. And this metacognition is just like a muscle, which needs time to be built. So every time we lose the object of our attention, let's say we're focusing on our breath, and every time we forget and we do the to-do list, what we didn't do and what we do in the future or whatever. So if we lose our object of attention and recognize it, it's like just doing another rep in the gym as we strengthen our muscles of mindfulness and metacognition. And we should just bring back our focus without any judgment and regret. It is something we are aiming at, aspiring, but expectations would be wrong here, because it is a challenge, and we are always aiming at progress, not at perfection. So another, a bit more musical would be each time we lose our objective attention, it is like doing another scale. Practice the instrument in the same way again and again, and it strengthens our muscles of mindfulness and metacognition. And just as the violin is very difficult to start with as an instrument, we won't start off experts in contemplative practice. Meditation, or how you want to call it, what you want to call it, is a challenge, and we have to be realistic here. One has to be patient, but be aware that any practice, and if it's just 5 minutes per day, is exercise which is going to be rewarding. And at the beginning it might be difficult to concentrate, but it's definitely possible to train. And if we are able to focus and to keep our focus, it's helping us to own our thinking, our acting and doing. We have sort of more control how we are thinking and acting. And this is something we're aiming at, in order also to eventually act more ethically.
Thank you so much, Anja, for sharing those insights, and welcome Dara to the session today. We are almost coming to a conclusion part of the session, but it will be hopefully up on the website as well, so you can look back at either this session, and there's a parallel session happening on a Wednesday in Eastern time or Pacific time as well, that suits some people in other parts of the world. So the same session will be on a Wednesday and a Friday usually, and both videos should be available on the website if you don't get a chance to participate fully. So you're more than welcome, and I hope you are well wherever you are in the world. And just building on what Anja is saying, I was talking about there in terms of this practice, and as we come to a close here, we're aware of things like perfectionism, and we start to get into these in some of the later skills in CIT. We talk about these as thinking traps or cognitive distortions, that sometimes we get stuck in these, we have to be the best, we have to do the most, we have to do everything while we're, maintaining our resilience, maintaining our stability and clarity at home or wherever we might be right now. I think we have to be kind to ourselves. Excuse me. And two ways we look at that in CIT, and we talk about this quite a lot, is look for progress rather than perfection. So in any area of our life or in any element, I think if we can be as kind as possible to ourselves, and particularly this weekend even, look at making progress in whatever we're doing, however we're doing it, rather than focusing on perfection. And then the other thing we talk about is having aspirations, not expectations. So connecting to what Anja is saying, that it's realistic or unrealistic expectations, but aspiring rather than expecting. And I think when we have less attachment to the expectation or the outcome, it allows us to be a little more kind to ourselves and not feel so disappointed if we don't get to exactly where we wanted to get to. So we aspire to get wherever we get this weekend, using whatever practices we can use. And I'm just saying, yeah, so thanks Anja for pointing that out. So it does say 9 a.m. GMT, so there may be some imperfections, not perfections, in the way this is advertised, and we're looking at trying to rectify that before next week. So hopefully it'll be clear on the websites. But now this is a space, I know we started a few minutes late today because we had some technical issues, but if it's welcome Alvaro, and apologies if we're just entering into a session and we're going to be closing it up pretty soon as well. So I'm suggesting that next week we maybe start with the focused attention meditation or contemplative practice. and focusing the mind in its natural natural space, natural place, we can introduce that at the beginning of next week. But I'm going to hand it back to our participants who've stayed with us for this hour, and thank you very much for being with us this morning. But if there's any reflections or comments or insights that you would like to share and close with, I know we're opening and closing at the same time here for some people, but now's the space for Anya and for participants.
I'm so to jump in, and I'm handing it over to all of you in a second. I'm just very confused because this is not the only problem we had. So you all thought it's at 11 o'clock. Is that correct?
For Dara and for Alvaro?
Yeah, and more people are coming because for us they said 9 GMT.
Morning, Jenny.
Which is 10 o'clock our time, but the majority apparently got a different information. So we have to check on that, Shane, because we had a parallel course as well. Couldn't be there either. So we really have to be careful with the times now.
I think we need a quantum physicist.
Maybe it's because the daylight saving time has changed last weekend.
Yeah.
So if it hasn't, it might have created it. I've seen this for other sessions as well. So there's a little bit of confusion this week.
Thank you for sharing that insight, Juan. I think it might well be, and it might be a label that we have on the website that we need to change and work with. So really deepest apologies for those who are just joining us, because we're actually just coming to the close of this session. And so we interpret it as 10 a.m. our time, and obviously Jenny and others who joined us, and Alejandra now, they're interpreting it as a different time. But if you want to use this time actually to log on to the website and to the resilience session, and you might be able to look through, because it's an hour of a video, approximately an hour, where Michael and Marilyn and Jennifer guided people through the practice that we've just gone through, including the contemplative practice at the end. So apologies if it's not going to be live for you this morning, but we'll do our best to rectify that by next Friday. And I really wish you all a pleasant, as pleasant weekend as you possibly can. But maybe the last few comments, if you have any, will be to our participants this morning. Frank, please. Frank was waving. Maybe think goodbye, or Frank, did you want to come in and have a comment? Frank is gone.
Hi, Shane. Can I?
Hey, Jenny, please. Yeah, absolutely. Look for any clarification. I don't know. I said we might need a quantum physicist to work out the concept of time to come in and work this out. But it's as confusing for you as I'm sure it is for us right now. You look confused,
so,
though, Jenny.
Are we just starting an hour earlier next week? Is that it?
I believe so, but we'll make this as clear as possible by emails if necessary, and on the website. So, for you right now, what time is it?
It's 11. It's 11 o'clock.
11, and so usually this would be 9 a.m. GMT.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's, apologies, because that's what we have it on our website. So it's as Juan said, the daylight saving time seems to have thrown people all over the shop. So apologies, Jenny. And I'm not sure if you found the link.
That's what I wanted to ask. Are the recordings on?
Yes. So I believe yesterday's recording should already be up on the website. So if you go on CIT, Compassion Integrity Training.org, and then you'll see the banner at the bottom. There's two different trainings on the banner at the bottom. It's the resilience training, the main resilience training, which is this one here. And then we have another training for caregivers and children. So if you click on the resilience training, you should have access to all the videos so far. This one won't be on yet because we haven't managed to get live streaming up, but the other one from yesterday should be there, and you should be able to go through the practice this morning.
Yeah, the Wednesday session is on, and I just checked the newsletter I received from the Child of Compassion says 9 GMT, and I think it's we should announce it here that we meet at 10 a.m. our time, from 10:11.
It's the confusion, I think, is coming from the Google Calendar, because for me, I'm +2 GMT, and it used to be 11 a.m. and now it's at 12 a.m. So I think it's something that has to do with the Google Calendar event.
Thank you, Alejandra. That's probably it, and I think that may have thrown many people. It's easy to blame Google for many things, but they could be the fall guy here or fall woman. But yeah, I think it might be the Google Calendar, because the times themselves. I mean, I believe it's 10 a.m. right now in GMT time.
Yes, it is. Yes,
it is, and you're in GMT time, so we're in European time. I'm actually not even sure what we call the time in Madrid in Germany and in Paris, but is that Western European time? I'm not sure. We're getting lost in Central European time. That's right. So we'll try to make that as clear as we can. And apologies if Google sent you astray. I'm apologizing on behalf of Mr. Google. And I really hope you have a as relaxing and enjoyable and pleasant weekend as possible. And we look forward to seeing you next week. And I'm seeing more people signing in now. And I really hate to sign off while people are signing in. But if you go on the website, compassionateintegrity.org, and if you click on the resilience training, you can go through a full hour of this week's session, which we've just covered. And that's Michael, Jennifer, and Marlon as your facilitators. But
thank you so much to both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Catherine, and see you next week, hopefully.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Away you go.